everybody. This is Scott Morganroth along with Louis Adio Weiss here for the Sports Exchange on this Thursday night. And Louis, welcome back in the house.
Here we go. Let's go.
We got a busy night, and since Louis is a baseball guy, we're going to lead it off with Ryan Skolrud. Before we do that, why don't we go over our guest lineup for everybody? Ryan will lead it off. He'll be followed by Anthony Wood. Nick Pugliese of the Palm Beach Post will be joining us tonight. Mel Farr will be talking to us for like 15 minutes. Damon Knight, Tom Shanahan, and Xavier McKnight will be our closer tonight. With that said, Ryan Skolrud, you're the man. Let's talk about fantasy football. What you got?
Well, to start it off, David Johnson was not practicing today. So for all those who went out and rushed to the waiver wire to get Chase Edmonds, it looks like he will be most likely a play for this week. It's not the best matchup. Really quick, going up against the Saints. The Saints have a very good run defense where they tend to struggle is against quarterbacks and wide receivers. That being said, because Edmonds can catch the ball out of the backfield, he should, if Johnson does miss, Edmonds should still be in for a decent amount of work and could put in a solid week. Alvin Kamara was actually upgraded to limited practice today, which is a good sign for him for this weekend. However, I still think Latavius Murray could still be a flex play, just because against the Cardinals they could be, they could be kind of watching how much they actually use Kamara. But especially for those who actually have Kamara, it's good to actually see him actually practicing and back at it. Another guy who actually missed practice is Josh Jacobs. I believe he's dealing with a shoulder injury. He hasn't been spotted at practice. He's been spotted kind of in some of the warm-up sessions. But he was asked today, could you practice or could you play this weekend without practicing? And he said absolutely. So that's a somewhat good sign for Jacobs in terms of the fantasy relevance for this weekend. And so I think that Jacobs is still an okay play for right now. Just keep watching the injury reports as we go through the weekend to figure out who exactly will be and won't be healthy.
Yeah, I actually went ahead and added Latavius Murray just in case. I've been waffling a lot with trying to find a suitable running back for Leonard Fournette, and I've been struggling between Latavius Murray. Now I had White, got rid of him pretty quickly. I really hope I could go with Josh Jacobs because I feel better about him, but with the injuries I'm hearing, I don't feel very good. That's why I had to go by adding Latavius Murray is what I had to do. So
I think that's a solid move. It protects you a little bit, just in case Kamara, isn't able to go. It gives you some flex appeal there at least at minimum, even if Kamara does play. So
okay, well there you go. All right, Matt Ryan not practicing today. According to the UK, they said Ryan is out. Matt Schaub is in. I forgot he was even in the league.
Yeah. So according to one of the alerts that I got today, he is continuing to nurse that ankle, and so he wasn't expected to practice today. So I'm guessing he didn't, and so they're looking to possibly. It looks like it could be Matt Schaub. I have not seen anything official that Matt Ryan is going to be out, but if Matt Schaub is the quarterback for Atlanta on Sunday, I definitely think that means you could pick up the Seahawks defense for this weekend, and that could be a solid pickup for you in terms of streaming defenses. If you weren't able to get someone like like Pittsburgh, or obviously you don't have someone like the Patriots or something. Atlanta, in terms of giving up points to defenses in fantasy, they give up the 9th most points to defenses. So that means they give up a lot of turnovers. They've had trouble scoring points. They give up a lot of sacks. And with Matt Schaub's history, I can see a lot more turnovers coming Seattle's way in this game in Atlanta. So
think about the tandem of Matt Schaub, Julio Jones. That doesn't have a good ring to it, does it?
No, we used to think it was okay for him to Johnson was it Johnson in Texas?
Right.
Andre Johnson.
Andre Johnson.
Yeah.
Andre Johnson, yeah. So I mean, that used to be a pretty good thing there, but even Andre Johnson never had. I think he maybe had one season of 10 touchdowns. Has Julio Jones ever had 10 touchdowns in a season? He's always right around that 7 to 9 mark. Racks up like the most yards in the league, but only about 7 to 9 touchdowns. So that's always been a little bit of a fantasy notch against him in terms of Julio. And so I mean, with Matt Schaub, I think he could be okay. I think with Matt Schaub, it's going to be a bigger day for Austin Hooper at tight end. Especially considering that Seattle gives up the 5th most amount of fantasy points to tight ends. That's kind of one of the spots that their defense struggles the most is against tight ends. So I think if Schaub is starting, Hooper's in for the biggest day, I believe.
All right, let's go to your sleepers of the week.
All right. So moving to the sleepers, I've got a couple here. First off is Cole Beasley. The Buffalo Bills are playing against who are the Bills playing against? Again, let me go back to my schedule here. So the Bills are playing against Philadelphia, and Philadelphia bleeds points to wide receivers. They give up the most amount of points to wide receivers. They're playing in Buffalo. Cole Beasley runs a lot of those kind of short slot routes that really, since they don't utilize the tight end a whole lot, that kind of tends to be the safety blanket for quarterbacks in those kind of offenses that don't use a tight end. And so Beasley very well could be the guy that gets a lot of those kind of dump off passes and could end up with a touchdown possibly against this Philadelphia defense. Again, they bleed points to wide receivers, so it could be a big day for John Brown too. But John Brown's a little higher ranked. He's kind of in that low end wide receiver 2 category and rank, kind of in that 18 to 22 rank in terms of what he can do. Cole Beasley's more like wide receiver 40, and so I think that he's a guy that because of the opportunity presented him could definitely have a good week. So for someone in like a 12-team league, Cole Beasley is definitely a flex play at minimum for this week.
Okay.
Moving on, the next one is A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown had basically been okay. He had shown his the elite abilities that he had shown off in college when he was playing at Ole Miss with DK Metcalf. But A.J. Brown really hadn't really developed much chemistry with Marcus Mariota. It could be that Marcus Mariota just couldn't pass the ball. And really, Marcus Mariota's safety blanket has always been Delaney Walker. Well, Ryan Tannehill comes in. He gets the start this last week. And A.J. Brown ends up getting 8 targets, 6 catches, which is, I want to say, double the most that he'd ever had yet. I think he maybe had one game with 4 catches for 100 yards. But ends up with 6 catches, I think only one of them for less than 10 yards. And so he had a really solid game, developed a lot of rapport with Tannehill coming into this game. And now with Tennessee going up against Tampa Bay is another one of those teams that kind of bleeds points to the wide receiver position, giving up the 3rd most amount of points to the wide receiver position. So it's definitely an open opportunity for someone like A.J. Brown with his speed, his catching ability, and with obviously Ryan Tannehill trusts him. So that's just going to provide a ton of opportunity for A.J. Brown to have a good game. The other one in that game is Jonnu Smith. Delaney Walker has been dealing with some leg injuries, and Mike Vrabel has stated that they're just not sure that he's going to be ready for this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, the game is in Tennessee at home. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not only do they bleed points to quarterback and wide receiver, but they give up the 2nd most amount of points to the tight end position. They're one of only 3 teams that give up 10 points a week to the tight end position. And so Jonnu Smith, again, he had a little bit of rapport with Ryan Tannehill last week, I believe got into the end zone. So this is another guy that, because of the change in because of injury and the change in quarterback, provides opportunity that normally wouldn't be there. So I definitely think that Jonnu Smith is in a week or in a league right now in fantasy where the tight end position is just absolutely decimated with injury, which it tends to be every year. He is definitely a streaming option. I think that he would be a good option to use for like a budget move in DFS this weekend in order to make some bigger moves and have some bigger players at wide receiver and running back in your lineups.
And you got two more. Cameron Brate. Go ahead.
So Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard is dealing with an ankle injury, I believe, and due to that, we're not sure how much he's going to play. And there's a history between Cameron Brate and Jameis Winston. I want to say it was 2 years ago, maybe it was 3. Cameron Brate was the tight end number 7. I think he finished with 8 touchdowns on the season, had about 700, 800 yards. He was the safety blanket for Jameis Winston. Well, then they draft O.J. Howard, and they kind of split work for the most part in O.J. Howard's rookie year. And then the next year, O.J. Howard was okay, and then really took off in like week 3, and I want to say ended up getting injured like week 9 or 10. But Brate stepped right back into that role and was a solid contributor again. And because it's Godwin, Edwards, and then they really don't have any other dependable receiving options, Cameron Brate, especially if Howard doesn't play, is another solid guy that I would put in as a possible streaming option, or again a budget player to use in your DFS lineups. The last guy is Kenny Stills. We talked about on our show last night with Fuller being out for a few weeks with this injury. Kenny Stills really is the guy that's going to step into that wide receiver 2 role. I think this will help out DeAndre Hopkins as well to really get loose, because Fuller tends to be the kryptonite for DeAndre Hopkins, and so when both of them are on the field, a lot of the deep passes from Watson tend to go to Fuller because of his speed. Now with Fuller gone, I think a lot of that's going to go to DeAndre Hopkins, but I think that Kenny Stills can fill enough of that Will Fuller type role that he could be in for a big week this week as well.
The only question I have before we wrap things up here is this. The Lions obviously decimated with the running back loss of Kerryon Johnson. Do you think their tight ends get a bit more play to complement the wide receivers? And I use that plurally between Jesse James and T.J. Hawkinson.
Well, I think it's possible. The Hawkinson just, again, he is a rookie and he's still getting integrated into the offense. The New York Giants are actually pretty good against tight ends. It's wide receivers and running backs they really struggle against. And so I think that this is going to be a tough road for the tight ends for the Lions, and so I am still more on the Ty Johnson is going to score higher than T.J. Hawkinson, or even a combination of Jesse James and T.J. Hawkinson. I still think that Ty Johnson, again, because of how favorable the matchup is against the Giants, who give up the 5th most amount of fantasy points to running backs, I think this is favorable enough for him to have a decent game.
Anything else you want to add before we conclude and pick this up next Tuesday?
I think that's about it, other than good luck to everyone with their lineups, whether it be in DFS or in season long.
All right, everybody. Ryan Skolrud will be back on Tuesday night here on the Sports Exchange. Lewis, anything you want to add to him really quickly?
No, Ryan, I mean, we were briefly talking about the Michael Bennett trade, but, we can talk more about that Tuesday as this week plays out.
Okay, yeah, speaking of what's the trade deadline will be next Tuesday, won't it? So imagine there'll be a flurry of activity coming up between now and then. So, all right, Ryan Skolrud, great job this week, and we'll pick it up next Tuesday. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend.
See you later, Ryan.
So anything you want to add to this, Lewis?
He made an interesting point about Kamara. We know what kind of player Kamara's been in his first 2+ seasons in the league, so... and he's been very important while Bridgewater's there, kind of allowing Bridgewater to focus more on the passing game, being that Kamara is such a dynamic, rusher. But, you also have to take into account that he's had at least 81 catches in both of his first 2 years in the league. So, it's interesting. Hopefully he's healthy. I understand he may not play this week, but, with the way that Bridgewater and co have been playing, I don't think it's going to hurt him too much, just given that their recent play.
Okay, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic definitely plays out for sure. So